Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I actually have filmed all of the clips for this video already. I just sat down to edit and realized that I filmed the world's worst intro. So I'm doing it again. So I know that this is not a unique idea at all and that so many people have done it. I don't know who the first person to have done it was, but this video is a reading Booktuber's 5-star reads video. I am an avid watcher of Booktube. I have a bunch of different Booktubers that I love to watch, but I don't really know how much their reading taste matches with mine. I love watching their content, and I do take a bunch of the books that they talk about and put it onto my TBR, but I'm not actually sure if what they recommend is something that I would enjoy reading. So I figured that I would do this video series and pick different Booktubers and read some of their 5 stars and see if those books work for me as well. A few things when it comes to picking these books: I am trying to pick standalones only. I am the type of reader to binge my series, and so I don't want to commit to a whole series in a taste match video, so I'm not going to do any series. I'm trying to pick books that aren't like universally loved. So if a Booktuber's 5-star read is One Golden Summer, I'm not going to pick that. If it's an Emily Henry, I'm not going to pick that. If it's ACOTAR, Fourth Wing, I want to pick books that are a little more unique and that fewer people rate 5 stars. That's basically it. I kind of decided I wanted to do this video while watching Books with Lexie here on YouTube. She has a Booktuber taste match series where she exchanges books with another Booktuber. I think it's like 2 of their favorite reads and 1 that they didn't like, and see how their tastes match in that way. And since that series of hers inspired me to start this taste match series of my own, Books with Lexie is the first Booktuber that I will be reading. I picked 3 books that I found. One of them I got from her 2025 favorites video, and then the other 2 I found off of her favorite shelf on Storygraph. I'll cut you guys to the next clip and you can see which book I picked up first. I've already started reading 11/22/63. I am currently on page 132. I think that's honestly not that far into this book. I'm not even a quarter of the way into this book yet, but I have read enough to be able to give you a synopsis. We are following this English teacher, Jake Epping. He is called by the owner of the local diner, Al, because in the pantry of this diner, there is a weird portal that can take them back to 1958. Al is currently on the brink of death. He's suffering from cancer, and so he enlists the help of Jake on a mission to save John F. Kennedy and prevent JFK's assassination in 1963. The whole first section of this book is setup, it's exposition. You watch Jake learn about some important characters, you watch him learn about the portal and get a very long explanation of how the portal works. You hear about Al's plan, his mission. In the beginning of part 2, Jake goes into the portal, and right now you're just watching him settle in and slowly start to learn the world of the portal of that timeline, and then eventually he'll start preparing for his mission. Currently, I am in a very weird position with this book. I don't hate it, but I also don't necessarily like it either. Already on page 130, I already feel like this book is way too long. I feel like a lot of these details won't come back around, won't come back into play, especially because this is all happening in Maine and the important events for 1963 are in Texas. last night when I was reading this, there were a solid couple of pages that was just full of spoilers for one of Stephen King's other books, for It. I'm having a hard time with this. I'm a lot more of a dialogue person than a descriptions person, than a prose person. I don't like reading a lot of descriptions about the setting and about what everything looks like, because I am really incapable of imagining things. I have a very hard time imagining things. I can only picture things that I've seen before. I can't conjure up anything new. And so a lot of this is kind of just lost on me. The premise of this is still very intriguing to me, and that's really what's pushing me through it, is that I'm waiting for the action to start. And I feel like once the action starts, I will enjoy this a lot more, and then I'll breeze through it a lot faster. But I have been reading this for a solid 5 or 6 days, I think, and I'm only on page 130. So this is going really, really slow for me, and I hope that it picks up. But I do really want to stick through this and see how it goes. Like I said, I am not that far into this book. I'll try to get a little bit more reading done, and I will update you guys when I have some more thoughts. LOL, I just didn't record that entire goddamn thing. Okay, take 2. Hey guys, so it's been a few days. I thought it would be a good time to update you guys on my progress in 11/22/63. I am still moving incredibly slow in this. I am about halfway. I'm on page 459, and yeah, I had some thoughts. So I don't remember exactly where I was in this book when I last talked to you, but since we last spoke, this has definitely picked up. I've been enjoying it a lot more. Our character has left Maine and has made his way to Texas. So he's been subtly prepping for dealing with Lee Harvey Oswald and prepping for the whole JFK assassination. But my main reason for enjoying the second quarter is because we are actually watching him establish a life in Texas in the years leading up to the assassination. He gets a job. He finds a place to kind of settle. He even has like this little romantic encounter in here. I didn't think I would like it because I have been itching to get to the actual time travel part and the events of the assassination and how he plans on preventing all of that. But I think the second quarter did a very good job of establishing his life. We stopped looking at minute by minute, day by day things and started skipping time to highlight the most important aspects, the more intriguing parts of his life in the years leading up to 1963. So at least for me, the pacing really picked up in the second quarter. I didn't entirely enjoy the romantic relationship in this. I have a hard time reading about romantic relationships written from male point of views, or at least straight couples from male point of views. They almost always have a weird tone to them, and it just makes me uncomfortable. So I wasn't a huge fan of that, but I really did enjoy the teaching moments that were in here. I think all of his little teaching moments with his students were very heartfelt. The moments with his fellow teachers and the other staff at the school really established his life in Texas. I am interested to see how all of that comes to play and affects his decisions later on in the book. Where I left off, we're finally getting to the actual planning of his mission. Lee Harvey Oswald is finally in the US, so the actual premise of the book that got me to pick it up in the first place is finally starting to take center stage, and I'm really excited to see what happens. I think my main barrier for this is just the length of it. My brain feels the need for high turnover in books, not so much to like drive up my book count or for like social media purposes, but more so I personally just get bored being in a single book for too long. I've been reading this for maybe 10 days now. I have been reading this way slower than I read other books. I have been at the point where I'm like starting to look forward to my next book. So I really want to get through this and finish this. I'm definitely starting to enjoy this more, so I don't want to DNF it, but I do want to just be finished with this soon. So I will give you guys another update once I have read further and have more thoughts. Hey guys, so it is a few days later again, and I am now on page 600, I believe, 605. I just started part 5 in this book and thought that I should check in again. Since we last spoke, this has truly picked up. Throughout the last few hundred pages, our main character has been living a double life, like Hannah Montana but spy version. He has had his like undercover life where he's looking into Lee Harvey Oswald and is trying to create his plans for the assassination, but also has his everyday life where he fell in love and basically just his 1950s, 1960s rooted life. Right where I left off, these two separate lives have come to a head. They have collided, and I found that whole section very, very intriguing. I feel like my main issue with this book is that I'm not emotionally attached to these characters. There are a couple side characters here and there that I have liked, but there's no one that I'm really rooting for. I don't feel emotionally attached to them, and so even when they are in these situations that they get in, I'm not as immersed as I would like to be. I truly think that might just be a result of the length beforehand and the fact that the book started out so slow for me. I also think that up until now, everything has been fairly predictable. Throughout this book, there has been a lot of talk about time travel, about how he doesn't know how his actions will affect the future, and basically like the butterfly effect that it'll have. He talks a lot about how the past refuses to change, doesn't want to change, and how it also, I think he uses the words harmonizes, which I think makes plenty of sense, but the way that those concepts are addressed in this book feel incredibly heavy-handed, which makes the plot feel very predictable. It takes away any element of surprise with it. And with the lack of connection to these characters, it kind of ruins some of the intrigue. I'm unfortunately not really seeing the hype around it. I do have another 250 pages left, so I will see how the ending goes. I think that this plot would lend itself very well to a TV show, which I know that there is one that's currently on Netflix. So I think I'll probably try watching that once I'm done with this and see if that's any better. But yeah, I think that the concept was really interesting, but I'm still waiting for it to pay off. Oh my god, y'all, I am finally done with this. Honestly, I think that the second half of this book read a lot better for me than the first half. I'm not sure what I'm thinking about rating it. I think it'll be somewhere in the 3.5 to 4-star range, probably closer to the 3.5. I think that my hopes were a little bit too high for this. I don't know where those expectations came from because I didn't look at a single review before going into this. I tried to go into this completely blind, but that might have been part of the downfall for this book. General thoughts. So for me, the beginning was incredibly slow. I felt like we were getting beat to death with the rules of time travel, with Jake's experience learning time travel, with the day-to-day weird things that were going on when he first went back in time. The book started picking up around part 3 or 4. I don't remember which section it is, but I don't want to tell you what happened when it started picking up. Once he went to Texas, the book started picking up. It got a little faster. It was more interesting to me. We started focusing more on the actual JFK assassination and the general plot that I was expecting in this book. But at the same time, in Texas, I was caught off guard with a love story I wasn't expecting. The love story in this played a lot heavier of a role than I thought it was going to. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, at least in the beginning, because I just didn't feel very attached to the characters, which is really saying something considering this is an 850-page book. Even at the end, I still wasn't very attached to Jake. I wasn't attached to any of the other characters we meet throughout the course of this. I also think that the introduction of the love story made this a bit more predictable. The heavy-handed hints and like time travel focus in the first half of the book made the second half of the book extremely predictable. I already knew where this was going, which made it less interesting in terms of looking for twists and keeping my attention. That being said, I did like how the book ended. I think that the ending was handled fairly well. I actually think out of the 3 books that I've read by Stephen King, this was the best ending. Normally in Stephen King books, I am hooked by the first half and then get bored by the second half. This, I think, was the complete opposite. I was bored through the first half and then was more interested and more hooked on the second half. I did like how the time travel played out. I like how everything was wrapped up, both in the love story, in the time travel, in the mission plotline. I think all of it was fairly satisfying. But yeah, so overall, I gave this a 3.5. Hey guys. I don't know if I told you guys what I'm reading, but I have started Bat Eater and Other Names for Khorazang by Kylie Baker. Bat Eater is set in 2020 during the height of the COVID pandemic in New York City. It follows this girl, Khorazang, and kind of demonstrates the racism that Asian Americans, especially Chinese Americans, were experiencing during the pandemic. I am about a quarter of the way in right now, and I am really enjoying it. I think her writing is really eloquent. It's descriptive. I don't want to say flowery. It feels weird calling writing in a horror book flowery, but she uses a ton of metaphors without it being overbearing and over the top. You're reading from Cora's perspective, and Cora is a very anxious individual. She is a germaphobe. I would say she's probably in the line of OCD. And so a lot of the descriptions and things that are brought up feel very obsessive. She gets very obsessive about making sure that she is clean, that the environments around her are clean. She is very obsessive of trying to make sure that she is doing things properly. Cora is also just a very lost individual. She has no idea who she is, especially after the death of her sister, Delilah. Cora has always seen herself as an extension of Delilah instead of her own person, so she doesn't really know what to do with herself now that her sister is dead. She doesn't know who she's supposed to be, what she's supposed to do. She's struggling with religion, her beliefs, just in general is lost in the world. I don't really know what the general plot of this is going to be. She works as a crime scene cleaner, and each of the crimes that have been described have been towards Asian American women, and she has found a bat at each crime scene. So I feel like this is shaping up to be a serial killer story, and that her or her coworker is going to be one of the next victims or something. This is just me completely theorizing. I have no idea what the plot is going to be, but I am enjoying myself so far. This is a bit of horror, and So the gore and like body descriptions are a bit detailed. So if you're not into any of that, I would not recommend picking this up. I'm having a good time reading this so far, and I will update you guys once I kind of get a better idea of where this is going and how I'm feeling about it. Hey guys, I honestly have no idea when the last time I updated you was. I'm filming this at the time of that big snowstorm on the East Coast, and so I've been working from home for the last 3 days. Everything's kind of just blurring together. I don't really remember when I started reading this book, when I filmed updates, really anything. It's all just kind of blended together in my brain. But if I remember correctly, I believe I was talking about how I thought this book would be a serial killer story, and it kind of is, but that is a lot more of a subplot. I'm 50% of the way through now, and I think I have a pretty good idea of what the plot is. I mean, I would hope so, considering I'm halfway through. But where I originally thought that this was a serial killer story, it's actually a ghost story. It's paranormal. Our main character, Cora Zhang, is being haunted by this ghost who she believes to be her sister Delilah, who was murdered at the beginning of the book. The haunting seems to be related to this Chinese ghost festival. I don't remember what specifically it was called, but I believe Chinese people like burn something called joss paper to send to their loved ones who have passed away to kind of feed them and satiate them so that they don't haunt them in the real world. Cora wasn't really a believer in it, so she didn't partake in this festival, and so she partially thinks that that's why she is now being haunted by her sister. And so where I am right now, she and her coworkers have devised a plan to satisfy Delilah's soul. I'm interested to see where this is going, but aside from the paranormal aspects of this story, we also have a lot about the racism and everything that was going on during the pandemic. There was a quote in there that I highlighted. I'm gonna go see if I could find it. Okay, so there was this scene where our main character Cora goes on this rant about how people aren't paying attention to the murders of these Asian women, how the police aren't paying attention, aren't giving any weight to solving these murders and to protecting these Asian Americans, how the media isn't focused on publicizing and publishing these murders. And in it, she mentions during the death of her sister that when she was questioned by the police and she didn't really have much information to say, the police told her that she needs to look harder at white men and that they can't just find him based off of that description. And she says, but white men are going after Asian girls, and that's all they have to go on, us being Asian. No one wants to look harder at us to imagine that we're real people. She says, every day I clean up their brains and blood, and I know that a white man coming for me isn't an if, it's a when. The worst part is I know no one will find out who did it. No one will write about it in the newspapers, because who cares if another Chinese girl is dead? They'll hear me screaming and just put in their headphones and keep walking. Even now you want to walk away from us because it's gross, because blood and guts make you uncomfortable. But it doesn't matter if we're uncomfortable. We don't get to look away. We're dying and no one can hear us. And like that whole section, that whole paragraph just gave me absolute chills while I was reading it. It's a sentiment that people of color, especially Black people, are constantly pushing and saying. It's the privilege that when issues arise, whether that's police brutality, whether that's the genocide going on in Palestine, the stuff that's going on in the Congo, in Sudan, whether it's ICE and all of these immigrants, people look away because they don't think it affects them. And if it doesn't directly affect them, they don't want to look. But for the people whose communities stuff like that does affect, we don't have the option to look away. We're forced to know this, because if we don't know this, if we don't pay attention, we're the ones on the line. That part just resonated with me a lot, and it's just like completely weighing on my mind. The desire to look away and choosing to look away, that is something that affects everybody. That's not just like a white person thing. That's not just a men looking away from women type thing. It's everybody does it to something. There's at least some sort of injustice in there that you are ignoring, that you aren't paying attention to because it's horrific, and you don't want to spend your time looking at something so disgusting, so depressing. That's an everybody thing, myself included, and it just really puts things into perspective and is a really good reminder that, like, we're privileged to be able to look away from that, and we really shouldn't. Anyway, yeah. So I really enjoy this book. I am going through it a little slow. I feel like that's been the theme for this reading vlog, is me reading pretty slowly through these books. But whereas the Stephen King book, I was reading slowly because I just wasn't having the best time, this one I am reading through slowly because it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to see the pandemic and all of the Asian hate during that time period, but also the paranormal aspect, the horror aspect of this is also something I need to take in bits and chunks. So far, I think that this is a really great read. Being about halfway through, I don't quite know where we're gonna go from here and how this is all gonna wrap up. The potential paths that are in my head all feel like they might take more pages and more development than what we have left, but I guess we'll find out. Hey guys, so I just got back from work and needed to update you guys because I have finished Bat Eater. I absolutely loved this book. I thought that the plot, the themes were just so hauntingly beautiful. The horror was really well done. There was a ton of body horror in it. There was some paranormal aspects going on, and all of that had me completely on edge. There was a serial killer element in there that almost had me more stressed than any of the ghost story things going. I think that the author did a really good job at depicting what it was like for Asian Americans during the pandemic, as well as just kind of showing the mindsets that people had during it, the way that there was a constant paranoia, constantly being watched, being looked at, trying to blend into the background and not become a target for anybody. I feel like this is a common feeling for people in minority groups, BIPOC, LGBT, and so I feel like a lot of people can relate to this. Throughout this book, we followed Cora's journey in learning that the system doesn't support people outside of its majority. It does a very good job at showing how toxic mindsets can easily grow and spread. A lot of people say that the people in power have nothing to do with it, systems have nothing to do with it when it comes to the rhetoric that is spread, but that's just not true. And I think that this book does a very good job at demonstrating how these systems let hate spread. A lot of the conversations that were being had in this book were eerily familiar to conversations I have had in my own personal life surrounding the pandemic, surrounding current events in the US. There was this one line in the author's note that I really loved. She said, "Do not let your empathy stop at the borders of your own community." In her author's note, she acknowledges that during the time of the pandemic, there was a lot of Asian hate, but this is an experience that extends to other people in the BIPOC community, other people in the LGBT community, and we would not be where we are today without movements like the Civil Rights Movement, Black Lives Matter, and things along those lines. So I just love that she drew attention and brought it back into the bigger issue, and that this is a systemic issue rather than just a community-based issue. I think my main critique of Bat Eater isn't really a critique, but I just wish that I had more time with the side characters, specifically Harvey and Yifei. Like, I wanted to connect to them more. I wanted to see more of them. I wanted to see their friendship and relationship with Cora grow. But due to the nature of Cora's character, her personality, her paranoia, her pessimism, she keeps anybody and everybody at arm's length from her. And so we didn't get that connection, but I desperately wanted that for her and wanted that for us. So it's not necessarily a critique in that it was something wrong with this book, but it's something that I was missing and was really hoping to get more of. I think for me, this book really resonated on the racism, but it also covers topics like trauma and grief that I think are accessible to everybody. And overall, I just thought that this was really well written. I will say that Cora is not the most likable character. She's whiny, she's paranoid, she's anxious, and she's just incredibly flawed. So I do think that some people won't really enjoy reading from that kind of perspective, but I had a very good time with this book. I ended up rating this a 4.5 stars. We have one more book left in this reading vlog, but I currently do not have access to it. I have been trying to get it as an ebook, but it's not really working. So I think I might go see if my library has the physical copy. You guys will see what book it is in the next clip. Hey guys, as you can see, or maybe not, since this background is just kind of a plain white wall, I am in a new location. I am currently traveling, so I'm not in my apartment, and if you hear a bunch of noises in the background, that's honestly just par for the course. I feel like everywhere I am is always has a bunch of people making noises, moving around. I'm trying to speak quietly because I am in my partner's house and his roommates are here, and I don't know if they're sleeping. I think one of them is definitely awake, but I don't know if there's anybody else here and they're sleeping. So I'm going to try to be a little bit quiet. But I wanted to give you guys an update about the third book that I am reading. A few days ago, I started The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay, and I am 42% of the way through it. If you've never heard of this book, it is a thriller horror kind of book. It's written like a memoir manuscript that somebody found and put like edits and corrections on top of. We're following this guy, Art. He is writing about his senior year of high school when he started a club called the Pallbearers Club, and in this club, they would go to funerals for people who didn't have family or friends that would like attend the funeral. This would mainly be for like elderly people who outlived their friends or family, or for like homeless people who were no longer in contact with their family. But he starts this Pallbearers Club, and he put up flyers around town, and this girl named Mercy decides that she wants to come and show up. They start to become friends, and then something weird happens. I just got to the first instance of something supernatural or weird happening that causes Mercy and Art to no longer be friends. Mercy tells Art that there are vampires in New England, and that some people with tuberculosis come back as vampires and consume their loved ones, feed off of their organs and blood, which is the cause of tuberculosis in other people. So weird things start happening, and Mercy keeps saying that it's the vampires and that vampires are going down, and Art starts freaking out, starts seeing weird things. So we are reading from the perspective of Art, and he is such a paranoid character. He's so paranoid. He's anxious. He's honestly a little wild. He's scared of everything. There's constant references to the fact that he is a sensitive character. He's always on edge. He's always scared. Meanwhile, Mercy is set up to be this cool character. She's set up to be like the cool person that takes Art under her wing, up until one night where things start going down and Art starts getting freaked out by Mercy. It's hard to describe this book because it's two unreliable narrators. We have Art's perspective in the form of the manuscript for the memoir, and he is telling his story based off of how he remembers it. But then in the margins of the book, there's red ink. In the physical copy, there's red ink that highlights, underlines, circles different sections. And then at the end of each chapter, there's like a response section. And this is all Mercy's thoughts. These are Mercy's reactions to Art's version of events. These often contradict each other. They aren't really agreeing with how it went. And so it's two unreliable narrators. Each have reasons why their version of events could be wrong. There's a lot of references to one or both of them smoking weed, which makes the version of events that they are seeing even more unreliable. And so there's honestly just a lot of parsing through, trying to figure out what you believe, what you don't believe. I really, really enjoy the structure of this book. I think it's very unique. It's so interesting. But my main problem that I'm having, and I can't tell if this is a me problem or a book problem yet, my main problem that I'm having is that Art uses incredibly long run-on sentences. He's so long-winded and it's hard to figure out what he's saying half the time. He basically just rewords the same thing over and over and over again, and it doesn't make sense to me, and I have to reread the long sentence to figure out what he's saying, what he's talking about. In the chapter that I'm reading right now, there's a sentence that just takes up the entire paragraph. One paragraph is one whole long run-on sentence about his experience in the hospital. It took me a few rereads. It's hard to tell if this is just because my brain is a little fried. This wasn't an issue for the first quarter of the book. I didn't notice the long sentences, but then when I was reading it yesterday, I was really, really struggling. But I was also reading this after 6.5 hours of driving and 2 to 3 hours of editing. So my brain could just be incredibly tired and just not be able to figure out what's going on. I just might not have been in the right headspace for it. I'm still having some issues figuring things out this morning, but it's not as bad as it was yesterday. So it might just be a book that I need to read at the right time to fully get it. I am really confused on where this is going right now. I can't figure out what's going to happen. There are a ton of foreshadowing references, literally to the point where Mercy's thoughts will have something circled and just write foreshadowing ? In there. And so I'm very interested to know where this is going, what's happening. Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the most unique books that I've read. I'm having a hard time staying immersed in the plot and the story from all of the run-on sentences. Hey guys, so I finished the Pallbearers Club yesterday and I have some thoughts. To start with, I ended up rating this a 3.5 out of 5. I don't think that this was a bad book by any means. I think that I am just not the reader for it. I was really struggling with this one because my feelings on this book kept flip-flopping. I found the beginning and the end fairly intriguing, very interesting, but The middle section of the book I was truly just struggling with. I think that this book had one of the most unique formats I have ever read in my life. It sets both the memoir narrator and the editor as unreliable narrators. You can't tell which one of them is really telling the truth. Both are inherently flawed characters. I did like the editor point of view better than the overall memoir narrator's point of view. The writer of the memoir, I found him to be just too whiny, very self-pitying. He blamed a lot of his personal problems, his health problems, really anything and everything on this one girl who is the editor. I also found that the memoir's voice was incredibly long-winded. There would be like paragraph-long run-on sentences, and I would have to read and reread it to figure out what the point was and like what he was trying to say. This book was full of rambling. There were a ton of like punk band references that I just didn't get because I don't really listen to 80s, 70s, 80s, or 90s punk music. I did really like Mercy's voice. She's the editor. Her voice was very sarcastic, very witty. She had a lot of thoughts in there that mimicked what I was feeling and what I was thinking, so I felt very seen reading Mercy's point of view. I feel like this book is good, but it is not for everybody. This is specifically for people who are into more open-ended concepts. If you're looking for something with a well-defined plot and well-established rules when it comes to like the magic or like creature supernatural stuff, you're not going to get that in this book. It's kind of confusing. Nothing is truly defined. It's left up to interpretation, and that fully includes the ending as well. Even now, I finished this book yesterday, but even now, I'm still kind of trying to figure out... My mic died, so I really hope you guys can still hear me. I'm trying to figure out what interpretation I want to use and which one I like better when it comes to the ending of this story. I'm not really sure. The inconsistencies and like logic holes are made known in this book. The margin notes are very meta. So the text is very self-aware that there are leaps in logic and inconsistent descriptions and just not enough reasoning. I also think that if you're not a fan of unreliable narrators or inherently flawed characters, this is not going to be a book for you. I think that this is just a good book for a very specific reading taste. If it at all sounds interesting, I do recommend giving it a shot. And I specifically recommend grabbing the physical copy because in the physical book, they have the notes and everything as red ink as if someone marked it up like an editor. Whereas in the ebook, it's all of the notes are usually moved to at the end of the paragraph written in a different font, but it gets a little difficult knowing what these notes are specifically referring to, noticing the change in voice sometimes. I think the concept works a lot better physically. I don't know how it would work in the audio. But with that, that is everything that I had for this video. We read 3 different books. We started with 11/22/63. I rated that one a 3.5. I think that was an overall good story and that I would have enjoyed it more if I had the right expectations going into it, but it was incredibly long-winded. The next one was Bat Eater and Other Names for Khorazang, which was my favorite out of the 3. That I rated a 4.5 stars. Great horror book, very topical, a lot of discussions about immigrants and Asian Americans. And then finally capping it off with Pallbearers Club, which I rated a 3.5. I'm really excited to do this again. I think Conclusion-wise, Lexie and I probably do not have similar tastes, which I kind of expected a little bit since a lot of Lexie's reads tend to be horror and thriller, and those are genres I don't really read too much in. But this was still really fun. I love Lexie's content, and I will probably do another one of these in the future. I have a ton of booktubers that I watch that I can pull recommendations from, and I think I know who the next video might be. But yeah, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below your favorite booktuber and get some booktuber recs out there. I think that's all I have for you guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.